at the Denver Coin Expo. Oh my gosh. Why have you come to this show?
Oh, it's the best around a very many state area. And with the COVID and everything, they have bent over, the National Western has bent over backwards to accommodate us. Apparently there's only like 5 venues in all of Denver where we can gather. And they've asked, whatever they've asked, we've done. It's made it easy. Everybody wants to come here. It is so easy now to come and do a show, and people are excited and they can get here, they can fly in. It's a wonderful show. I never miss doing it.
And what's the public been like?
The public's been great. It's a very hungry public. There haven't been very many shows because of COVID open, and the ones that have been smaller, is my understanding. So it's wonderful for a collector to be able to come here and get a variety of anything he wants, because there's 5 or 6 or 8 dealers that'll have those same things. So it's just a great show. There's so much variety, and there's so many people here from out of state. And we're here for the buyers. I mean, thank you for coming, buyers, right? That's just, without the buyers, we have nothing. We have great buyers out here.
And what piqued your interest in paper money?
That's a very long story. I was born into the business, as you know, David, and was into forced labor of sorting pennies and filing pennies date based on date in mint mark. And so I didn't like it very much until I became like 40. And then all of a sudden I realized I actually knew something about it after all these years, and then I fell in love with it. Then I found it fascinating, and I've loved it ever since. And then I realized that if I was going to do shows, I did not want to deal in silver dollars because they were very heavy, right? And these were much prettier than coins, so I fell in love with paper early on. And so I became a paper dealer.
And I have to ask, what has it been like? Who is your numismatic family for the viewers that don't know?
So my name is Judy Kagin, and my father started when he was 9 years old for the same reason. Somebody gave him an 1883 no-cent nickel and said, in Minneapolis, he was selling newspapers, so she said, you keep that nickel because the mint made a mistake. It doesn't have the word cents on it, and they had to change it, and it will be valuable someday. And that piqued his interest, and he became a dealer. He was a dealer till the day he died, and when he was 85 years old.
His name was?
His name was A.M. Kagin, or Art Kagin, yes. And he is fondly remembered by all the old folks. He was a true collector's dealer. He loved every minute of it. Loved every minute of it.
I loved your father, and I knew him well.
Yes, you did, David. Yes, you did. That was fun time. Yes, you did. Yeah.
Okay.
So I learned from the best.
Okay. And how about we ask our dealer friends if you have some really cool paper items to show us?
See, that's the thing about paper. There's so much cool stuff about paper. Really cool, interesting stuff about paper. Yes. So I've pulled out as many as you want to see, and we can go over them one by one. This is the educational series. This is a part of a very popular series, probably the most popular series from 1896, called the Educational Series. It was replaced 3 years later. Various and sundry stories about why it was, but suffice it to say these had more ink on them than any other notes. This is the $1. It's called History Instructing Youth. Most of the vignettes on notes are taken from very famous paintings, scenes from very famous paintings. So here you can see history, the allegorical figure for history instructing youth. And she's pointing to Washington, D.C. In the background you can see the Washington Monument and the Capitol. And you can read the entire preamble to the Constitution word for word on that. Yes, you take a little kid and you say, can you read this? And he reads it word for word. It's just amazing. Surrounded on the outside are wreaths of about 20 to 32 famous Americans, not all politicians. Longfellow, Poe, Otis, who invented the elevator. Of course, there's Lincoln and Franklin and Washington, and Washington's in the biggest wreath in the center, but famous Americans that you wouldn't have thought about. Then the back shows George and Martha, and the going joke was people didn't like the note because they didn't want anyone to come between George and Martha. Ha ha ha. That's what it is. We used to do very ornate engraving back in the day. Same series, this is the $2 note. This is called the introduction of steam. You see the paddle wheel? So this this allegorical figure represents steam, because we know that because it's a paddle wheel. The introduction of steam and electricity, and this figure is holding a copper wire, a bale of copper wire. For those of you old enough to understand what that's all about, right? I'm not sure a 20-year-old does anymore. Introduction of steam and electricity to commerce and manufacturing. So this figure has a money bags next to her, so that's commerce, and this figure has a building next to her. So all of these figures represent something. That's the title of the painting for this series. The back has Fulton and Morse on it. Oh yes, you want to see it. Fulton and Morse. So not presidents, Robert Fulton and Samuel Morse to Morse code. And then the third of that series is the $5 educational, and this is called The Introduction of Electricity to the World. So you see this electrical storm, and here's the light bulb. So these are the electrical figures and the light bulb. Now the story is that the reason these notes were discontinued is that the people of Boston got incensed because the allegorical figure had a bare breast. That's the fun story going around. The real story might be a little more boring, like the bankers found it very difficult to count stacks of these because there was so much ink on them, and they would get them confused one from the other, and they wanted a change. So pick whichever story you like. To see who's on the back of that? These are generals. These are the Civil War generals, McClellan and Grant. Very ornate. So that's the educational series. Once upon a time, we had extremely colorful notes. These are part of the rainbow series, and you can see because very bright blue, red, green. And so we call these the rainbow notes. Very popular, very expensive.
What kind of value?
This is about, depending on the grade, of course, this is now about $2,000, and this is now about, these are both about $2,000 at the moment in general, in the condition they are, which is about a VF condition. This is the battleship note, which is another famous note. Now you have to remember that this industry is mostly inhabited by men, very few women. So the notes they like tend to be the chief note and the bison note and the battleship note. Very ordinary looking note on the front, but you turn it over and it's the exact replica of a World War II Texas-class battleship. And men like that, and they'll pay lots of money for that note. This particular note comes to be about $19,000 if you wanted it, again, depending on the grade that's up here.
And if you wanted to learn more about paper money collecting, how would you suggest a person do it?
Well, in today's age, I would just go to the internet and start Googling things. If you can get to a show, that's the best way, because like you can see this person, he's enjoying just looking at the stuff. It's okay just to look. And if you come across something that you fall in love with, that's what you start collecting. You know, don't collect something you don't like. Make sure it fits your pocketbook, and make sure it fits what you love. And if you want it to be animals or generals or vignettes, pick a topic and pick a comfortable collecting area. And it served a lot of people good during this COVID. It gave us all something to do that was creative and used your mind. It's a good thing to have a hobby like this.